Two rounds down in the championship and nobody taking charge up front. It's all for grabs as we roll in to round number 3 here from Circuit Paul Ricard in France. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Kevin Boss today with Stewie behind the cameras. It's been a fraught affair. Two races, two very different races, two very different winners. Today could go a long way in determining who the front runner is, because up until this point, we haven't had one. Kevin Boss, welcome in. Welcome to France. Welcome to Circuit Paul Ricard. What do you expect to see out of the drivers today?
Well, a lot of different things can happen, and thank you for the welcome. This is my first commentating of the year, so I'm looking forward to that. What I can expect is a lot of it is going to be won in Sector 1 and 3, I expect, because that's where the corners are, that's where the overtaking is going to happen, and that's where, yeah, I believe most of the mistakes can happen, and we'll see how everyone handles those corners.
Certainly is. And we also, every race thus far, we've had to talk about the manufacturer difference in the running order, and it has played a huge factor. We've had some Porsches up near the front at Monza, for instance, but had the McLarens ranking supreme at Brands Hatch in the UK 1 week ago. Who's your money on? Who's your eye on today, manufacturer-wise, that might have the advantage around this particular circuit?
Well, of course, you have to look at the guys who are fast in a straight line, and then supposedly you look at the McLaren, who's always fast in a straight line. But my money's also on the Mercs, having driven here in a Merc myself. In sectors 1 and 3, it is quite strong, and they don't lose out too much, actually, on the Mistral Straight. So if they can get it together in sectors 1 and 3, I can think they can be very competitive.
This is interesting because I was unaware. This track has a straight on it somewhere. Never heard of it, but it is one of the longest straights in all of motor racing. A very, very long Mistral straight that leads into what I assume, what I believe to be one of the best complexes of corners ever. Sector 3 around here has some of the most interesting back and forth, easy to get stranded side by side. And that's a thing that I don't think a lot of people associate with Paul Ricard, yet I believe they really should. Kevin, you can do some racing around here. You race side by side. There's space for that. And if it does go a bit wrong, just go off onto the tarmac. It's not the end of the world.
No, you've got no grass, no gravel on the sides. So if you do have to get off track, it doesn't hurt you too much. So you do have to be sure that you don't cut the track, which is still a big possibility here, where you can very easily get a warning for track limits. So we'll see how they all handle that.
Certainly will. Wrapping up free practice here, and then we will go straight ahead to qualifying. A lot of places you see drivers take half-hearted attempts at practice, but usually, more often than not, you don't see that happen at Paul Ricard. Why? Although it does have one of the longest straights you can imagine, also a very technical circuit. It's got a lot of corners, a lot of undulation, bad camber, good camber. It is a track of that takes some getting used to, some acclimatization to it. I think you see that a lot when you come here, everybody giving it their level best. And speaking of, normally we don't talk about representative lap times, do we, Kevin, in practice? But I think everybody out here was trying. Look how close those times are from at least the top 15 on.
Yeah, all within a second. So one thing that we don't know, of course, from practice, like, are they running low fuel runs to prepare for qualifying, or have, like, from P16 downwards, have they mostly been doing long run pace, try and see if they can get consistently good lap times for the race? So everyone has their own strategy for free practice, and yeah, only time will tell what they actually did.
Well, that ends practice, and qualifying is go. It's a short 10-minute session. It's a slightly longer lap than usual around here as well, which means that they'll have to be on their absolute level best to get their best laps in. Get a few cracks at it, especially if they reset at the halfway point 5-minute mark, as they so often do. Dylan Tan, the current championship leader in the Legion of Racers 144, first out onto the racetrack, converting that first pit box into clean air for the time being. See Savalainen, who typically loves to have that first pit box. So it looks like they came up slightly shy today. So many storylines coming into today. Talked a little bit about the hey, take the overall control of the championship. You might not have to look any further than Dylan Tan, but we'll see the rivals they have. We've got Samir Fosh, who's had a just okay season thus far, Kevin.
Yeah, not the greatest of results for him just yet, but we all know how good he is, and it could just come up to the front here at Paul Ricard. But yeah, knowing how often he races in different types of organizations, you can only think that at one point it will come together, and we'll see him at the front of the pack.
Speaking of Samir Fosh, one of the most spectacular drives I ever saw him do right here at Paul Ricard. Slice through the field in a Ferrari, which he is in today as well. Before we get to that, qualifying, of course, a huge task here. They'll be running low fuel, obviously pump the tires up a little bit and go for it. What do you reckon, 1 or 2 laps before they run their quickest and reset?
They'll probably do the fastest lap on the second hot lap, because usually, even at a circuit as long as Paul Ricard, the tires are not at their optimum points after just one lap on the out lap. So they'll probably have the fastest laps on their second lap, and especially if they reset and try and do it all again, then that very last lap will probably be the fastest we'll see all day.
Well, there you see it, the very first lap being undertaken by Dylan Tan. You got to go into the path of the pit out lane to get the proper run into turns 1 and 2. It's an S section and then followed by another S section, though tighter. You got to slow down right here, well down into the first gear for a lot of different cars, including the McLaren, to get around the tight right-hander. And now we start back up the hill. Yeah, it is slightly uphill, folks, I promised you that. And down the Mistral Straight, which is also slightly uphill for the first bit. There is no Formula One or prototype chicanes. We're using the full length of the Mistral Straight, as they do in the GT Challenge. Dip down ever so slightly. Don't venture off to the right. There's a nasty bump over there that could upset you. You might see a car hit that if they're 2 and 3 wide, and they certainly will be. And now seeing corner, the very technical turn that you can take quicker than you imagine you can, and it's all legal as long as you stay inside of those markers, just like Dylan Tan did. Now it's the carousel corner right-hander. It's a double apex. Some argue to me that it might be technically a triple apex, but I'll leave that to better minds. And then the left-hander, got to be going quite slowly through this particular part of the racetrack. You don't want to overdrive and get a track limits there as well. Excellently executed by Mr. Tan. A couple of turns left. Another sweeping left-hander, blind all the way through. Final a 90 right back onto the pit straight here. That is a lap around Paul Ricard. It's fast, it's furious, and it's easy to mess up. Dylan Tan making it look easy. Has been a 53.315. That is a very nice time to start out with. Hugo Merrils comes in second, Savalainen third, but nobody close to Mr. Tan.
No, it looks like it was a pretty perfect lap. Might have been able to hug the inside of the second to last corner, see if he could squeeze out a little bit more time there, as he did miss the apex on the turn in. But there are different lines through that second to last corner, so some people prefer a little bit of a wider approach and get a bit more speed towards that final corner. But yeah, already now seeing him 4 tenths ahead of everyone else, it is quite impressive.
It really was. I wonder if maybe many of the drivers were going for a nice, calm installation lap, and maybe Tan wasn't. Cody Sherritt, by the way, just went P2. He's 3 tenths exactly off of pole position right now, but nobody else particularly close. Valentin Berrier up into third now. That knocks Merrill's back to fourth. Ogda Radikov in 5th place rounds out your top 5 for the time being. Samir Fosh down in 8th place with Savalainen just in front of them, continuing to run around. Now keep in mind, it was just about a 10th or so off in practice, and usually we don't put too much stock into practice times, and that's exactly what I was talking about, by the way, folks. The very tight pit out here at Paul Ricard. Seville, another car there very nearly having contact. The Honda wisely staying off of the racing surface. That's not pit out where that Honda was. That was definitely avoiding action being taken.
Yeah, but also looking already at the people who have continued their laps, there are a couple of people who look like they're very fast laps so far. One of them is the one we're looking at is Jonas Savalainen as he comes towards the line, putting in a P2 and a 153.58, now only 2/10 off Dylan Tan in P1. So we do see people going faster, and yeah, just have to wait and see whether they can actually challenge him.
Savalainen trying to do just that. They will reset to pit lane. They're going to get one more last stab at it. 10-minute qualifying session goes by so very quickly, doesn't it? Only just about 3.5 minutes left to go. Samir Foch up into P4, a little over 3/10 off of that pace, and he's being trailed by Peter O'Brien in the number 16, the O'Brien racing car. Foch has had enough of that. They will pull off of the racetrack. Maybe get one last crack at it themselves. That's another thing we didn't mention either. You can get a nice tow around here if you judge the distance appropriately.
Yeah, but then you have to be careful, especially on the long straight towards Sector 3. You don't want to close up too much and then be affected by the wake of the car in front. So you just want to have that distance perfect. So you have that little bit of tow, but not the negative of having the wake going through that tight and twisty final sector.
Yeah, it certainly is something interesting you got to consider, isn't it? You got to consider everything. 2/100ths is something that Cody Sherritt is considering here as they're going to take one last crack.
Yeah, them now being in P2, you'd think they'd have a good shot at challenging Dylan Tan for P1. But yeah, only time will tell. That's all I can say, really. Now looking at Hugo Merels, currently going about the same pace as he did before, but anything can still happen. He's only going through Sector 1, so a lot of time can be won on the entry on towards the Mistral straight, because if you just get that a little bit wrong, you lose so much time on the straight before you enter the fast right hand and go into Sector 3. So anything can happen there.
Yeah, it is an interesting racetrack in that, right? We talked about how quick it is, but it's quite a long lap around here, and there's a lot of areas you could go off. Very easy to invalidate a lap, and look at this. This is just how much the slipstream is worth. Hugo Merrill's getting a cheeky little bit of sniff of the draft down the straight here. Just anything. That could be worth 1,000th. It doesn't matter. It's all time at the end of the day, and it's worth it if you can pick up just a little bit, especially with how close the tolerances are. Dylan Tan on top of 53.302. Cody Sherritt 2/100ths off of that pace. Behind them, Savalainen in third, just about 3/10 with Samir Foch and Valentin Berrier in tow. And behind them, this man, Hugo Merrils, is just about 4.5 off with Agner Radikov behind them as well. All very tight here. A few 100ths gains a position here.
Yeah, and if we look at our screen, we can also see that Valentin Berrier is currently 4/10ths faster. That would get him the provisional P1, but he still has to get it. But yeah, we're now looking at Valentin Berrier as he's coming out of the last corner towards the finish line. Let's see if he can actually do it. Valentin Berrier gets P1 with a 153.270, so he lost a little bit in those last couple of corners. That's still a very good time.
That is exactly what you're looking for. Valentin Berrier going P1 in the Honda. It's not really too much of a surprise. Berrier has a pretty decent history here, Paul Ricard, I would say, and piloting that Honda has so much speed. It was only a matter of time before one of them challenged for the lead. A 52.270, 32/100ths faster than Tan, 52/100ths faster than Sherritt. And remember, when I said just a moment ago, 100th will make a difference. It certainly will for Dylan Tan and Sherritt here.
Yeah, with only 300s and 500s between them for pole position, it is very close indeed. So we now have Savalainen, who's just gone into the pits, 3/10ths behind. So from P4 onwards, there is a bit of a gap, but some of them are still on track and improving. One of them is Samir Foch as he enters the final turns of Sector 3. On my screen now, it says about 3/10ths up on his time. See if you can make this through.
Oh, it's going to be close.
Try and challenge is going to be very close indeed. Looks like a decent exit as he crosses the finish line. Samir Foch into P4 with a 153.477. So still 2/10ths off the top three.
Yes, that was, I think, pretty much all lost in the final couple of corners. Probably lost a tenth or so there, and that has got them at least fourth place. It was still an improvement. What can Hugo Merrills do? The John Lacey Sports Academy driver looks to be on an improvement run here and improves upon the time, but not the position right there. Valentin Berrier comes across the line. Is it a further investment in time? No, it is not. That lap slower, albeit by just 2/100ths of a second. Talk about consistency. Dylan Tan has spent the majority of this session at the top of the scoring pylon, finds himself on the opposite side of the front row now. What does he have? Hopefully 32/100ths.
Yeah, it's going to be very tight. Looks to be very close. It all depends on this final exit going onto the start-finish straight. As he closes in towards the start-finish line, let's see what time he has. And he goes P1 with a 153.250, 2/100ths away from Valentin Barrier. That was very close indeed.
Well, that's exactly what you expect. The results of qualifying confirmed all the cars back into the garage. Dylan Tan confirmed your pole sitter today from the last car out from the last ditch effort. It's a 53.250, quickest and good enough for his second pole position of the season. Valentin Berrier, 2/100ths off of that. Sherritt rounds out your top three. Foss Savalainen, top five. Barrels, Ognarodikov, Mellis, Seville, Hockey, your top 10. Close qualifying. Look at the times. A tenth makes a difference in almost every single position. We're all out there together. It's going to be closer still.
Yeah, especially seeing how close this top three is in qualifying, we can only expect a very tight race once that gets going.
Well, here are your championship points. Of course, this championship includes a drop round. Your worst finish in the season does not count for points. Basically, omitted, thrown out of the window. And these points are representative of that after 2 rounds. Dylan Tan, 72 points, had a perfect to round out last time and is at the top of the board. 72 points maximum at Brands Hatch a week ago. Juna Savalainen, 68 points by virtue of the win in the fastest lap at the Monza circuit in Italy. Did not sit on the pole for that race. That is the difference between the top two. Hugo Merrills in third place, 58 points. Jonathan Seville in fourth place, 53 points, tied for that position with Joshua Allen. In sixth place, Valentin Berrier, 48 points. And in seventh place, a tie between Cody Sherritt and Samir Bosch. Ninth place, Kieran Patterson with 40 points. And Radiani in the top 10 with 37 points. Outside the top 10, you've got Solonsev with 34 points. Jaroslav Hanzik with 31 points, a tie for 13th between Peter O'Brien and Eric Neville for 28 points. Butcher Billen with 25 points, tied with Konstantin Soldatov for 15th. Michael Herman Fry with 23 points. Thomas Ehrentraut tied with Alessio Mellis for 18th with 1 points. And rounding out the top 20, John Razor on 19. Outside the top 20, Jeff Seitman on 19, Sebastian Louis Alexander with 15, Jordan Daly on 14, Baki with 13 points, Sasha Death on 11, tied with John Gohan for 25th place, and Igor Ognarodikov with 9 points. Everyone with a 0 signed up for the championship and has no points to speak of, but is still active. Anyone you see with a dash has unfortunately retired championship. Well, they're close on the timetable, Kevin Boss. They're close on the racetrack. They're close in the points. I opened today's show saying that we could see our front runner emerge today. What do you reckon the odds of that happening are?
Well, it also depends on how well they actually go side by side through some of the opening corners and, if possible, through Sector 3 as well. Anything can happen. It all depends on how much room they give each other, how basically nice they are going to be to each other to try and stay in the race while also taking positions where possible. So I think that will be the biggest tell.
Well, we certainly have fans of many of the racers in the Genesee PWSR crowd is in full effect here today. wish them well. We wish you well wherever you are in the world today. We're spending a little bit of your Friday evening with us here at RCI TV. We definitely love reading the comments as we always do. And just quite curious, what are your predictions in chat for what you will see on the racetrack tonight? I think you're going to see, personally, a lot of side by side racing and hopefully, for the steward's sake, not a lot of spills, not a lot of off tracks here tonight. This racetrack can be a bit unfortunate, turn 1 and 2, certainly, but I think we able to get away cleanly here. It's always magnificent when you do get away cleanly here because you have these nice long trains of cars down the Mistral Straight. Hopefully, don't get into a situation where we have to restart, but that is something stewards are prepared to do if need be. Hopefully, we don't have to go to that point.
No, definitely. You always like to see close race, and look, as everyone always says, Robin is racing, but you don't want to see it go too far and require a restart, because then usually means a lot of cars have been in trouble into a big pile up, and you never like to see that. Rather just see everyone race well, race good, and have a good time and awesome racing.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of a mixed bag recently here on RCI TV here at Paul Ricard. Admittedly, some of the races have gone on without a hitch whatsoever. Ones have been, quite frankly, a complete mess. Let's hope it's opposite day today and it's a completely clean start. Of course, this is the Pro Split, the best of the best. Everybody making their final preparations for round number 3. Everyone knowing the weight of the moment, how pivotal round 3 can be in a championship like this. This is when they really start to matter. If you've already had a bad race thus far, this is the day that you cannot afford another mistake. You put the right foot in front of the other. It has to come off today. No more mistakes. But if you are one of the drivers at the front of the field, it's not pressure off, so to speak, but it is definitely less pressure. I've not made a mistake yet. I've got excellent points to fall back on. So even if it does go wrong at Paul Ricard, which it sometimes does, it will not be the end of the world. There'll be a few drivers, of course, who say that they come into this round assuming it is going to be their drop round.
Well, like we said before, anything can happen here. But I don't think you should go into the race with the idea like this is going to go bad, because then you're already putting yourself in a negative mindset, and that's, for me, it's not the way you want to do it. You want to be positive. You want to try and get a good result. Doesn't matter what track it is, even if it is Paul Ricard. So for me, you just want to do your best, and especially if you've had a bad last couple of results, you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself to try and get as high as possible, and maybe force the car to do more than it can do. So that's really something you need to watch out for.
Was that driver coach Kevin Boss coming out right there? I love that. The positivity, get your mind right, don't think about the negatives, and get on with it. A couple of facts about Paul Ricard you may not already know. Paul Ricard has the world record for the most amount.
What
What I was just going to say, if you can believe this, folks, I was just going to say, Paul Ricard holds the world record for the most amount of layouts of any track in the world. There's some 100 and some layouts that are used here just about every year. I think there's even more than that this track can do. But of course, this is used as a test track. But what I think we just saw Dylan Tan do was run the Formula One layout there a little bit, taking the chicane. I have seen that in a live race, admittedly. I've seen a car do that to get out of the way of another car. They just ran the chicane and come back onto the racetrack. One of the oddest things I'd ever seen. Humorous nonetheless.
Well, I've never seen that before, though. I think he took a right turn, which is a slightly different line. But yeah, that's not something you usually see. Though, if it is to get out of the way of a car, it can work. But if you take that chicane on the straight here, you'll lose a lot of time. So maybe if there's a big train of cars that are about to lap you, then it might be a good idea to do. I think otherwise it's just maybe pull off to the right a little bit and let them pass when you can, because otherwise you lose a bit too much time.
Well, they're getting ready to go 2 by 2 for the start. They are in Sector 3, but before we do that, I think we have to mention the elephant in the room. It is Paul Ricard. It's quite easy to get track limit warnings around this particular racetrack. If you go wide, if you undercut, it is very much possible. There's a lot of room to afford that. Have to avoid doing that at all cost here. You can rack them up in a hurry.
Yes, sorry, Jesse, I didn't fully hear that. Could you repeat?
Just saying, it's easy to get track limit warnings here by going wide and cutting the racetrack. It's a track that's easy to do that, very susceptible. If you are trying to drive as hard as possible, you go off the track, come back with a warning. Be aware, you can get a drive through here quite easily. 65-minute race today. Wouldn't want to take any unnecessary trips down pit lane other than the one mandatory stop we'll tell you about later. 20 plus cars down the front straight at Paul Ricard waiting for the green flag, and there it is. And it's a clean getaway, almost orchestrated by Dylan Tan. Barrier tucks in for a moment, then comes out to the outside of turn number 1. They're 3 wide for about 5th place. Will they get down to 2 wide before they Constantina together? They will. 3 wide, further back down into the field. Oh, 1 car around, big style there. Gets spun around in turn number 2. Everybody else is away cleanly. It's the 123. They've been turned. Everybody else got away with it, though.
Yeah, I did see a couple of cars go wide to avoid the spinning car of the 123. Otherwise, it wasn't quite the clean start. We're now seeing the cars to start go a little bit single file with just the 1 or 2 cars trying to still stick it to the side, as we're now seeing here going towards the Mistral state. But now everyone is going to go single file to try and catch that slipstream and maybe overtake before you reach the fast right-hander at the end of the straight.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. That was Patterson, by the way, in the 123. That looked to me, to my untrained eye, that there was a bit of a spin maneuver going on there. Luckily, everybody else was able to avoid that. And Patterson, though, lost all those positions, but is still somewhat near the back of the train for the time being. But, oh, my goodness, 1 car majorly off. Didn't quite catch the number of that truck, but they were hugely off. Was that Michael Herman Fry in the 181, perhaps? That was a huge off. I wonder if that was avoiding action or something. Let's see here. Oh, just got the wiggles. Just got the wiggles there. Couldn't quite do it in the scene corner.
Well, he did keep it planted very well, even though he had the wiggles, because it's very easily to just go sideways into a wall at those speeds that the tires just don't grip, and yeah, you just fly off into the distance and maybe even wrecking your race. But yeah, that was a very good save from him.
I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that as somebody who has recently tried to pilot the Porsche. I can't tell you, it's not easy. Yeah, they are running over the cones. That is, of course, one of the alternate sections of the racetrack, but GT3 drivers would prefer to use that. It's a extra little bit of turn in ability. Here is the contact that led to the spin. It's contact on the Honda there that spun themselves out. Solentsev, the unwilling participant in that, I would say.
Yeah, just spinning already, and then the other car not being able to avoid in time, that fully made them spin. It's something you don't like to see, but it's not it's not a deliberate infraction by any of the drivers there, so I don't think there's going to be something big from the stewards coming in. But yeah, we always have to wait and see what comes from the stewards office. Let's see what mood they're in.
I do love to try and predict things like that. By the way, Valentin Barrier has passed Dylan Tan for the lead of the race. Dylan Tan catching back up on the straight here, but will have to back off a little bit. Has no position to make a pass here at the top of the circuit. But I do like to make an occasional prediction. Here's my prediction. They're gonna no further action that with Patterson. I think Patterson spun themselves as such a death. Goes for a huge slide there in the Death Racing 247. That's a second big slide in as many laps. That was saved. Excellent car control.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of slides through that fast right-hander in the Merc, but yeah, Sasha also did a very good save there, still keeping it on track, but also what an awesome name.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the more interesting names that you could have for your race team, I suppose. I suppose it doesn't say what it does on the tin, but definitely don't want to be followed by the death race team. I don't think. I don't think that's something that maybe it's an intimidation tactic just a little bit. Speaking of intimidation tactic, Juna Savalainen and the Getting Slower Every Day team. I wish he would change the name of that team. I wish he would change the name of the car. Do it for me, Savo, if you are listening at some point in the future. The 100, though, in 5th place, trying to chase down Cody Sherritt, and eagle-eyed viewer in chat has pointed out, Samir Foch has got themselves all the way up into 3rd already.
Yeah, it's a good race so far by Samir Foch, not too far from P1 and 2. So he's already on the podium now, but he's been closely chased by Cody Sherritt. So anything can still happen here, but he's already put himself in a very good position here.
Samir Foch trying to make a move on P2. Dylan Tan now, who was on the pole position now, looking like they're the hunted, not the huntee. They were potentially looking at making the pass back on this man, Valentin Berrier. This is the rear wing of that Rocket Sim Sport Honda. Tan pulls up. Look at the turning ability of that McLaren in comparison to the Honda. Gets right up close to him. Samir Foch looked like they were going to be the ones making a move, but just absolutely gets left for the dust here at the top of the 3rd sector. And now Foch has got Sherritt and Savalainen and the entire lot of them behind. Meanwhile, the front 2, Berrier and Tan, have driven away from the field again.
Yeah, it's now just over a second as they've entered Sector 3, but still it is very close at this point. So if Foch now has a very good entry and exit out of the first couple of corners, he can close that gap. But it does seem like very slowly Barrier and Tan are pulling away that just that little bit.
Yeah, I wonder if it will all accordion together again when we get back to the straight. I wonder if the Ferrari Enjoyers 888 driver is sitting there going, just wait till we get to the Mistral straight again. You just wait. I'll catch back up.
Ferrari go Bert.
Ferrari go knee on the straight, I think, is what actually happens. It never seems to run out. So many other cars seem to run out of steam and puff, but not at Ferrari, and I think that's what we saw one lap ago. Let's see if it happens again. The gap is considerably wider, I will say. Berrier still holds on to the lead over Dylan Tan. Now, if you are Dylan Tan, Kevin, in this case, what do? You know that you have a car capable of winning this race. You know you have the pace in yourself, in your setup. You have a strategy that you're working with. What do? You're this close. Nobody else seems to be too close. Oh, a little bit of a touch here. A little bit of a touch and a wiggle there between all the drivers fighting over what is presumably 3rd place. Savalainen takes the spot from Sherritt, but for at what cost? A little bit of a touch. That could have been really nasty.
That could have been really nasty indeed. And those speeds, a tiny touch could send you all the way flying towards the far walls. And that's really something here at Paul Ricard if you're able to still hit the walls. But yeah, at those speeds, you really want to be careful with what you do regarding contact, because like I just said, it can send you all the way towards the barrier. But they both held it. It was a little bit of the rubbiness racing, but yeah, they do want to be careful. As we now see Sherritt go on the inside, I think there's a little contact again. Go side by side onto the start-finish straight, and let's see if Juna Savalainen can keep that 100 Merc in P4.
Cody Sherritt was not very impressed with the contact on the straightaway here and has decided that, hey, if you're going to make contact with me, I'm going to take liberties into the final corner, and very nearly had position on Savalainen. Savalainen able to hold on, though, taking the long way around the corner and just about stay in front and keep the P4 position. What I was saying before that all kicked off was, if you are Dylan Tan, what do? You know you have pace that you can win this race. Certainly now you got to be preaching patience to yourself.
Well, especially at this point, it all depends on how much Valentin Berrier is pushing that car to try and stay ahead. And maybe if Dylan Tan is having a little bit of an easy time now because he can easily follow on the Mistral straight, just save his tires a little bit, and maybe he can choose as a pit stop option, not change tires, because he might be able to save them before the first pit stop, then save those 5 seconds, which he might know they won't be able to overcome if they change tires.
Well, quite interesting. We talked about Samir Foch and the job that he had done driving up to P3. Is there's still a fight for P4? Savalainen has Sherritt around the outside. Savalainen has the inside. Will we see a crossover move from the McLaren here? I don't think we will. Covered off nicely by Juna Savalainen, champion of a previous Friday championship, a veteran. He knows what he's doing. But so does Cody Sherritt trying to make that move. Everybody else just sort of biding their time. Hugo Merrill's, Agner Radikov, Seville in this pack as well. All sort of minding their own business for the time being, allowing Sherritt to work it out just a little bit here. Very, very nice driving by everybody involved. You have to say, close quarters racing, you said earlier, partner, a little bit of bumping and banging never really hurt nobody. I'm sure the stewards won't particularly care about that too awful much as somebody diving down into the corner now trying to make passes.
Yeah, and especially for the guys that are behind Savalainen and Sherritt, they've already seen them bang against each other a little bit, so maybe they are exactly just taking their time, knowing like, oh, something might happen here, and they'll be able to capitalize on that. So it did also look like Tan was trying to overtake Valentin Barrier into turn 2 just as it moved away towards this battle in P18. But yeah, everything's now going off here all across the field.
John Razor made a move and it got by Aaron Trout for the time being. Aaron Trout fought back on the outside. Probably Razor didn't expect that. They're still side by side. This is the 4th or 5th corner they've done that, and it's forced Aaron Trout wide. Here comes Jan Klimes. Jan Klimes goes up the inside, says, thank you very much. It's a spot gain for them as well. That releases John Razor, and now Klimes has to defend from Aaron Trout, who's lost 2 spots and is probably very unhappy about how that all turned out for him.
Yeah, and we now see Jan Klimes trying to get
Jan Klimes is making a move!
He's blasting past him. It's insane.
I am going to need some statistics on that. Jordan Daly joins this fray off the racetrack looking to make a move in the scene corner as Aaron Trout gets forced wide. Jordan Daly in the Bentley, the lone Bentley trying to make a move, has the correct position up the inside, and I think he's just going to have him here. That's been horrible for Thomas Aaron Trout. They've lost 4 positions in a single lap, not even in a half a lap. That's absolutely frustrating, and there's still cars behind them. Look, it's Patterson, O'Brien, and Death all in a line behind them. It might not be over, but my goodness, everybody getting by Aaron Trout there. Just a frustrating lap. You got to forget this one. Put this out of your mind. Get back up on the wheel.
Yeah, that's something that really dents your confidence, just seeing all those cars fly past you while you're just trying to defend your position. But yeah, once you've got it, you're offline. The guys behind, if they have a good exit, they can just overtake, as we now see Peter O'Brien and Patterson duke it out onto the start-finish straight. They enter towards turn 1. So it does look like O'Brien has been able to take the position, though they're still squabbling as they brake. And yes, the move is done, with also Sasha Death very close behind.
Can I just say, that was some expert racing by Sasha Death right there. Fake to the inside, fake to the outside, realized that the move wasn't on. Could they have forced the maneuver? Absolutely, they could have done that, but they did the smart thing. They did not do that. They lived to fight another day, and I will say I've seen that go very wrong for many, many experienced drivers before, thinking they could make that work, and maybe Sasha could have made that work, but cooler heads prevail, I think, is what happened there. Flashing of the lights from Hugo Merrill's flashing the back of Savalainen, saying, hey, I've got a train of cars here. We are all trying to get by. Savalainen, all on rather deaf ears, if I'm completely honest with you. As Agner Radikov goes around the outside, they're going to be 3 wide coming down into this turn. Somebody's going to have to give. It's going to be the 38 of Cody Sherritt. Sherritt going backwards here all of a sudden. Hugo Merrill's loses the position to Agner Radikov as Igor Agner Radikov is moving up here.
This is all very close, very tight racing, and they're all keeping it clean. It's very good to see. But yeah, this is the sort of fighting you really want to see all across the field, as we've now also seen a drive-through penalty for the 98 of Stefano, which is for a lap 4 turn 15 incident involving the 16, the 98, and the 999, as you can see here. 98 taking out the 16, as we see here. Position not returned and a minor contact between 999 and 98 judged as a racing incident. So yeah, we just saw that happening live as I
Oh!
was reading it. That was close.
Seville with the sneak attack going down into turn one. Hugo too late to do anything about it, but luckily had the correct side of the racetrack for turn number one. Actually, that's technically turn number two, folks at home. I beg your pardon. And is able to just about keep it, but Hugo Merrils was absolutely fooled there for a second.
Well, that is some damn good racing we've seen here. As now Peter Bryan goes a bit
Oh,
wide.
it's gone
Let's see
wrong.
what's happened here. Oh,
Oh, a bit too late. I just worry. Might that have been contact? Remember, they were in that tight pack together, racing each other quite hard. Just worry that maybe it has come to blows between all of them. A longer replay here. Peter O'Brien. And yeah, just a contact into turn number one. Can't quite save it. Snaps it the other way and does that mostly out of respect to the other drivers. They could have easily chose to snap that back onto the racetrack or just let it slide out, but decided to fully spin it out of the way of danger. I commend you very much for that. Jonathan Seville for Pulse Simsport on an adventure here trying to get by Hugo Merrils. Several other drivers have got by Hugo Merrils. Now, might it be Jonathan Seville's chance to do so?
yeah, and it's staying very close, and we've seen some good, well, at least tries from Jonathan Seville so far in the Pulse Sim Sport 97. But yeah, it all depends on, is it the correct timing, and is there enough space to actually pull it off, like we saw what happened last lap. Got the inside of turn one, but then you've got the outside of turn two, and that is not the position you really want to be at. And as he now goes on to start finish straight, we go to Jordan Daly in the one and only Bentley, trying to find a fight against John Eraser, who is very close behind him.
That's going to be very interesting. Jordan Daly up into P17. He's got John Eraser behind him now. These two have an outstanding history together. They've been enemies. They've been frenemies before. They've had mutual admiration at different times as well. They've also had sharp words from time to time. These two know each other. They race each other. It seems like they're magnetized to each other onto the racetrack. As of late, it has been incredibly civil and respectful driving between these two. The Jordan Daly and the one and only Bentley, the Just Gamers 197 Bentley, making moves here. Started, I think, about 20th or outside the top 20, up inside top 20 now, 17th place.
Yeah, and as we just saw Kieran Patterson go past John Eraser in that right-hander up towards the Mistral Straight, that was quite the overtake. As we now see Cody Sherritt and Ogorotnikov try and get past Juna Savalainen.
Oh, he's going around the outside!
Oh, they've actually done it. Wow. And oh, was that a little bit of a tap, or was that just cleared? Was a bit difficult to see, but that was some fighting from all three of the cars and keeping it mostly clean, it looks like. But yeah, that was a very good overtake by Ogorotnikov.
Igor Ognorodikov is on a mission, on a tear. They've driven from 7th place up inside the top 5 now. They've made a couple of really good passes here around the outside of Scene Corner. Can you believe it? Can you believe they all kept that clean? And maybe Cody Sherritt and Savalainen had a tiny bit of a touch, but nothing, I think, too particularly interesting. This is interesting. Inside the final turn again, Cody Sherritt keeps making that move. Certainly has Savalainen's number there coming onto the pit straight.
Yeah, as they now go side by side towards turn one. So Juna Savalainen will have the inside for turn one, but if Cody Sherritt can keep it tight next to Juna, he will have the inside into turn two. But Juna Savalainen just does enough to squeeze Cody Sherritt out and keep his position off P5.
All right, here's the thing. I'm just going to say it. I'm on my soapbox here. I know there's a lot of people that don't like Paul Ricard. I know they groan when Paul Ricard comes up in a schedule or stuff like that. Why? I don't understand it. It's always interesting racing. We always have races like this. I've never covered in my entire broadcasting career a boring Paul Ricard race. It's absolutely brilliant. I can understand if you don't want to race here, particularly because it is a tough racetrack and it might not be suited to your expertise. But as far as the product of racing is concerned, it is an action-packed racetrack. Meanwhile, we're still racing for the lead here, some, 20 minutes into the race.
Yeah, and Dylan Tan keeps edging closer and closer to Valentin Barrier. So it's yeah, going to be only a matter of time before Dylan Tan actually tries and does the overtake. But yeah, for now, Valentin Barrier is able to keep him behind as we're now going back to Kieran Patterson, trying to fight. Who is that in the black and yellow car? That's John Eraser. Yeah, I didn't fully recognize the car. And he's actually gone past him as they've now exited Straw Straight. So once again, an overtake on John Eraser on the straight.
Kevin Boss, do you know why you don't recognize John Eraser's car?
Well, now that I see it from the front, it's very recognizable, but I looked at the car.
Well, it's a different color. He changed his color this year.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, it's not the
more
typical
you know.
John Eraser colors that we've seen for the last several years. It is a different colored car who skied this year. It has been throwing every broadcaster we have for a loop because you don't expect John Eraser's car to look like that, and yet it does. It will take some getting used to, but Patterson, talking about Patterson in the 123, remember, they were the car that, we'll call it a self-spin in turn number 2 on lap 1. They're coming back through the field. Shouldn't have little to any damage that would hinder the progress of that particular race car. They're just getting through traffic and doing it as respectfully as possible, of course, compared to where they should have been. They qualified somewhere around the top 10, I'm pretty sure. They're on the march back up through the field. Continue to bring dates on that. Hugo Merrill's in 7th place. It hasn't gone swimmingly for Hugo. Share it in front of him. That's the car that he can see out the windscreen. Got to be careful about the car you can see out of the rear view camera as well. That's Jonathan Seville in the 97. Close stuff as Sherritt trying to make a pass on Savalainen, trying to do what Ragnar Radikov did to not the same level of success defended by Savalainen.
Yeah, we've seen these two go through that corner in this way a couple times now, and it just seems like Savalainen is able to just eke ahead that little bit that Sherritt can't go past. But while this is all going on, I'll try and have a look at all the incidents that have come through, so please stop me if something develops on track. We had an incident on lap 1, turn 2 involving the 123, the 161 and the 98. No further action. Car 123 makes contact with car 161. The 123 loses control and car 98 has no time to react, causing further contact. 123 loses significant time. That was the contact with Patterson. Then we have lap 4, turn 6 involving the 329 and the 197 racing incident. 329 turns in early and causes minor contact. Lap 4, turn 7 involving the 197 and the 123 racing incident, minor contact. Same thing for lap 4, turn 10 involving the 100 and the 38 racing incident, minor contact. Lap 4, turn 15. 2 incidents. First one is the 161 and the 15 racing incident, minor contact, and the second one's the one we already discussed that ended in a drive-through for car 98. Incident lap 6, turn 6 involving the 699 and the 999 racing incident, minor contact. Then we just got a lot of incidents coming through. Lap 6, turn 12 involving the 38 and the 100. Warning for car 100, avoidable contact. Driver is reminded to be aware of his surroundings. Lap 6, turn 11 involving the 197 and the 999, racing incident, minor contact. The same for lap 6, turn 15 between the 123 and the 16. And also lap 7, turn 1 involving the 16 and the 123, racing incident, minor contact. Then lap 8, turn 1 involving the 16 and the 999, no further action. 16 turns in onto the 999 going into turn 1. Lap 8, turn 10 involving the 100 and the 41, racing incident, minor contact. Lap 8, turn 11 between just the 13 here, racing incident, minor contact, so I don't know who it was. And the last one I've got for now, lap 9, turn 11 involving the 123 and the 699, racing incident, minor contact. So the 123 has been in a lot of racing incidents.
Yeah, and further report, the 98 of Ayrton has, remember, I think they had the penalty from earlier. They have parked that car in the garage. They've not officially retired the car. They've been there for so many laps and continue to sit there like they are out of the race for the time being. And you know who's not out of the race? Any of these cars you can see here thus far. Jonathan Seville, the Pulse Sim Sport driver, trying to work it out in his head. He's got 3 cars in front of him. He knows Savalainen is a little bit of the cork in the bottle here now. Kevin Boss, if you are Jonathan Seville, what are you thinking? What are you planning to do here?
Well, it's going to be difficult to try and get through these with Savolainen still 3 cars ahead, being, as you said, the cork in the bottle. So at this point, you might want to consider going for an early pit stop, get a bit of fresh air in front of you, and then maybe undercut them heavily. Though that said, if you go now, you'll be going a little bit earlier than the rest, especially if they are not they're taking tires. So then, yeah, a lot could happen, but it might be interesting for him to now take that early pit stop and try and undercut the rest of the field. As we see Dylan Tan trying to overtake Valentin Barrier through the fast right-hander, it's just not enough. But this is what I was talking about previously, getting closer and closer every lap, and it's just going to be a matter of time before he gets him.
Well, that rather shatters my next talking point that I was going to bring up, Kevin, and I was going to say, what is Dylan Tan's game here? Is Dylan Tan just following Barrier out front and hoping to do the same in the pit stop, try to undercut them, overcut them, do something crafty to get by them? But I think that rather answers the question, an emphatic no. He's racing him every step of the way. So is Wouter Billen here in the Weishite 183, trying to keep that car in front of the Fry 181 Porsche. Does just that there.
We've just been told he was passing him on the straight, so he just did an overtake on Herman Fry. Now trying to keep his Honda plenty ahead of the 2 Porsches just behind him. And look again at Hugo Merls trying to get past Sherrod and Savolainen as they enter the start-finish straight on towards turn 1. They still look to be line astern here so far, but yeah, maybe he can do something to try and get past Sherrod on towards the Mistral straight. But as we've been seeing, Sherrod has been trying to get past Savolainen there and not being successful. So who knows whether Hugo Mels will have more luck trying to get past Sherrod.
It's so interesting when you're in a train of cars like this. If you move out of line and you move out of that draft, you lose the extra, sort of power you have. The wind resistance comes back, and obviously you're the sitting duck, so you can't pull out unless you know you're going to make a move. And a lot of times here at Paul Ricard, what you're waiting for is just a little bit of a mistake, a little bit of a hiccup. If you're one-on-one with somebody, you can take all the chances you want in the world. If you're a 4-car tandem like what this is here, then you have to wait for the absolute right moment, or anything can happen to you. We saw Savolainen lose positions, we saw Hugo Merrells lose positions, and that's simply because they got shuffled out of line.
And Sherrod has just taken Savolainen before they went through the right-hander. So he's finally been able to overtake Juna Savolainen. Now Hugo Merrells is just right behind him. So let's see if Juna Savolainen can now also hold back Hugo Merrells while also keeping a tight grip on Sherrod while they go through sectors 3 and 1.
Well, you've seen it happen there. That was a long time coming for Cody Sherrod, but they've done it. They've done it cleanly, and they've done it smartly. They've got by Juna Savolainen and moved themselves into the top 5 for the first time today. Actually, no, I think they were in the top 5 earlier, didn't they? Didn't they get shuffled out a little bit ago? They're in the top 5 nonetheless, and now this is the time for Savolainen to do their mandatory pit stop. It is a required 1 liter of fuel, but you must be stationary in your box for 25 seconds. No tire stop required, but we suspect somebody out there will try.
Yeah, a lot can happen in the pit stops, and some of the drivers really practice those pit stops because every little 10th or 100th counts, as we've also seen through qualifying. Like, every little bit helps you on your way, as we saw Juna Savolainen go in, try and get on, possibly onto fresh tires, and maybe get ahead of everyone that's now still fighting each other, as we see Dylan Tan now being almost 4 tenths behind Valentin Barrier. That gap has now increased a little bit of what we saw before. So with everyone now entering the pit stop phase, it's going to be interesting how it all shuffles out.
Other cars in the pit lane. Alessio Mellis is in the pit lane. Konstantin Soldatov in the pit lane. Michael Herman Fry in the pit lane as well. A little bit early. Actually, no, this is almost exactly halfway. I beg pardon. As this is a 65-minute race and not a 60-minute race. They're so accustomed. So coming in at the halfway point, I suspect you'll see more cars come in this time by.
Yes, and it's really going to be interesting to see what these earlier pit stoppers are able to do against the guys who go later. Like, are they taking fresh tires in order to try and gain more time after coming out of the pits, or will the later stoppers just go for fuel, save those 5 seconds to try and stay ahead? Anything can happen, and yeah, it's going to be a very tactical battle there.
Well, I thought more cars would come in, but none of the top 5 certainly did, as everybody else staying out here, playing the long game. It's been a very long time in ACC since we've seen that. As a matter of fact, cars coming in are immediately following that. Cody Sherritt coming in, the PWSR driver from South Africa, into the pit lane, and they have brought Hugo Merrills with them. The only 2 cars thus far to surrender down the pit lane of the top 10 or prize car, as they are in the pit lane still. That 181, that was an incredibly, excruciatingly long stop.
181, didn't really follow that one, but yeah, we still see this battle between Dylan Tan and Valentin Barrier still around the 4/10 mark, so that really hasn't changed since the last time we saw them go up on the Mid-Shore Straight. Though also with them, like I keep talking about it, but whoever dares to go into the pit stop first is going to dictate this fight, as we now see Cody Sherritt come out with Hugo Merrill still in there, and they came in together. So we now see Hugo.
That's a tire stop. That is a tire stop. One took tires, one did not. Hugo Merrill's, I'm forced to believe, no, he hasn't taken tires.
Well, in any case, we see Junior Savalainen now fighting it out with Hugo Merrills. So he's lost time towards Cody Sherritt. So Cody Sherritt has effectively won him a couple seconds there compared to Junior Savalainen. And now Hugo Merrill still needs to warm up his tyres, while Savalainen's already had a lap to do so. So we're going to have to wait and see how well Hugo can keep up with Junior Savalainen, as Cody Sherritt now has the opportunity to pull away.
Yeah, do bear in mind, and I forgot this myself, Cody Sherritt did make the pass on Savalainen, which means that they came in a little bit ahead of Hugo Merrill's, and that's why but on the pit timer, that is, they did funnel out exactly the way they should have done. So whatever one decided to do, certainly the other one did. There's no discrepancy in strategy between Sherritt and Hugo Merrill's that we are aware of. Dylan Tan hits out of the second place position, goes all the way down to pit box number 1. Everybody else cycles through. Agner Radikov stays out onto the racetrack. And you've got Samir Foch, Kubaki, Solensev in the pit lane. Neville, Billen, Barrier, and Aaron Trout also coming down the pit lane.
Yeah, and this is where we'll see a big jumble. When finally this big pack comes back out onto the racetrack, we'll finally see where everyone lines up. Samir Foch now also in there. We see Natan, Foch, Kubaki all done, with Barrier now taking off with Tan very close behind him, so nothing's really changed there. That's almost very equal pit stop, though. I feel like Barrier's got a little bit of a gap there.
A little bit of a gap, certainly the case, as we try to make sense of the post-pit stops sequence. We've got a few cars left to do that, though. Agner Radikov stays out, leads the race for the time being, Kevin, and I'm quite curious when they will come in. Might they stay out really late?
It could be, but then the people who stay out late now, you can only imagine that they'll really only go into fuel and forward there and not take any tires, because then you'll lose too much time now, though it will be a struggle later compared to some of the guys who might have taken tires. I'm not too sure who has, but yeah, you'd think they'd only go for fuel and then, you know, really make it as short a stop as possible with how late they're going. So that said, we're now at the halfway point, and we see Ogorotnikov and Seville go into the pits now, so they've perfectly timed it for halfway.
Perfectly timing their stops, and we'll see exactly how it all goes down. We'll see if Climbs and Death and Eraser and Gohan all come in, and Climbs also does oblige and comes in. Like I said, we haven't seen the late pit stop sequence come off in a very, very long time. It's not a favored strategy. Believe it or not, there was a time where pitting as late as humanly possible was the correct thing to do most of the time, but it just, I think the way that some of these championships here in RCI are set up, they don't work well with that particular race strategy. It's everybody else coming through, and here should be, eventually will be, the leaders of the race coming through. Agner Radikov down and gone. We saw that Barrier still in front of Dylan Tan, but only just.
Yeah, it's very close between those two as Ogorotnikov now comes out in P6. And that's Sherritt very close behind him. So I can't remember where they were exactly before. But yeah, we now only have Sasha Death and John Eraser who still need to do their pit stop. So talking about pit stop strategies, it really depends also on what the pit stop requirements are. Because I've seen in the Ginetta Cup at the end of last year that when you only needed to put in 1 liter of fuel, a lot of drivers chose to go as late as possible. Because, well, it just worked for them, especially with the likes of Christopher Strepen.
Yep. Interesting strategy calls by several other drivers. Sasha Death, by the way, leading this race over John Eraser for the time being. And Valentin Barrier, Dylan Tan still with the Speed Juice fastest lap of the race award. Samir Foch still your, what should eventually be your third place car. Agner Radikov, Sherritt, Savalainen, Merrills, Seville, Kibaki, all of those cars didn't gain or lose anything on the pit stop. Cody Sherritt going for a move down the inside of Agner Radikov. A scary moment for the PWSR driver there.
Yeah, they got very close, and it seemed like there was a little bit of a ping, might be a little bit of netcode.
Agner Radikov saw him, but I think way late, but just in time to prevent any sort of calamity from happening. I don't think Igor thought that Cody was going to go in there like that, realized, oh, Cody is doing that, and immediately swerved away to avoid contact. Excellent heads-up driving.
Yeah, and, you know, it was quite a late lunge there, as like the braking zone into that corner is very short, but it does mean now that Sherritt is able to run away with Oroknikov now being pressured by Juna Savalainen. Only just a couple tenths between them, and Sherritt almost a second ahead of Oroknikov. So that has really changed things around.
Several more penalties coming in. We've got a couple of penalties on the board. The 98 penalty we documented earlier. But Kevin Boss, what's going on with Patterson and the 120?
Well, there's only that one that's come through recently. It was on lap 12, turn 5, involving the 197 and the 123. 15 seconds for 123 as he took out the 197 with position return. So if he didn't return it, that would have been a drive-through.
Certainly, well, it is a drive-through on the list currently, unless I misheard what you said. Dylan Tan trying to go around the outside of Seaton corner. He's just about got him this time. Pinch him down to the inside. Tan trying to go a little bit wide, and he has done it. He's got it back onto the track bounds, fitting like a piece into a puzzle. He's just about got it done. The Legion of Racers 144 back out in front of the field of the cars that have pitted, as, oh my goodness, that was close between Barrier and Tan.
That was very close, like you almost couldn't put a hair between those cars. But I do think that the drive-through for the 123 might be speeding in the pit lane, because I did see him happen 15 seconds before. Might be.
Eagle-eyed, very smart indeed, Mr. Boss. That's it. I thought that should show up on the penalty sheet, and it hasn't done for that particular incident. So right you are on that. That is minor speeding in the pit lane. If you haven't played ACC in a while, there are different levels of speeding penalties you can get. Speeding in the drive-through, major is a stop and go. There was a time where no matter what you did in the pit lane, that was an infraction. You got a humongous stop and go 30. Those days, we would just reverse that and give the normal penalty, but more sensible heads have prevailed. The ACC adjudication room reverse some of the changes they initially had made. So a drive-through there. Unforced error for the 123, and it's unfortunate for Patterson. They were on their way back up.
Yeah, though they do seem to be in the pit lane for a long time, so I'm scared that they might call it a day there. Same as Stefano, even though they're still on track, they have been in the pits for laps on end. As we now see Valentin Barrier coming back at Dylan Tan.
Oh, that's just unfair.
Straight. Oh, that power of that Honda, just smashing that McLaren. And yeah, he's going to have no trouble taking this position.
Oh, no, he is! Oh, it's a clip! It's a clip in the seed corner, and they save it! They absolutely save it! Have you ever seen anything like that? A Honda completely around, and he saved it! Dylan Tan backs off to allow the save to happen. Kevin Boss, talk us through it.
Well, we can see Valentin Barrier coming in, and there he gets the tap from Dylan Tan, but he's just able to keep it there. So you do see he has to take the inside line to make sure that Tan doesn't overtake him. So Tan was still really trying to get past, but with him then having the inside line, he's able to keep his position. So that's going to be an interesting one for the stewards.
I just about lost my voice on that. I have seen drift cars around Paul Ricard, but they might need to call Valentin Barrier to learn a few things. That was incredible. Tan didn't mean to do that. Tan backed off and allowed Barrier to save that card and didn't pass him. I think that was just an accident, and it's been brewing all day. We haven't had one of those up there all day. It finally happened, but my goodness, what a save. That will not do the tires any favors. But wow, that one maneuver, that one save, saved the entire race for both these drivers, I feel.
Oh yeah, and those tires will be burning on the Honda right now. So we do see Tan now getting closer and closer because the tires will still probably need some cooling off in order to get them back to proper temperature. So you need to keep it a little bit easier through the corners. But Valentin Barrier can't really afford that to take it too easy. As we now look back at Dylan Tan, and he's got to do it all over again, trying to sit in that draft just close enough going onto the straight in order to overtake. But I think this time asking, it's just a little bit too far.
Oh my goodness, what a moment we've seen here, and Dylan Tan goes right back to work. He has to, doesn't he, surely, to try and make the pass again. He's made the pass on Barrier once. He knows how to do it. He's just got to set it up. The overall straight line speed of the Honda just so immaculate and impossible to replicate, but speed everywhere else Dylan Tan has. He's got to keep it close, use the draft, and make the pass all over again. Hopefully this time make it stick for the win. And what do? Do you just follow the car, certainly knowing that, well, I have relative pace, I just need to plot my move appropriately and not get repassed again? Or do you play that cat and mouse game that they are continuing to play till the end of the race and just see who crosses first?
Well, I think if you see how easy it was for Valentin Barrier to catch up to the McLaren on the straight there, you'd think that it would probably be the last lap where he'd given an absolute go, but then you need to be sure that you are close enough to do it and not make a tiny mistake where it just goes, yeah, where you know you don't have the gap. So looking at the way he's been driving this entire race, you can only imagine that Dylan Tan is going to try and go for the overtake.
Yeah, Tan's going to try to go for the overtake whenever he feels that it's on, because you never know what pass might be the last pass. And if you wait till the end of the race and you don't get it to come off, you will be wondering of yourself what might have been. I will just say this for the sake of sanity. The stewards will have a look at that contact. They will have a look at that slide. They will make a determination. And I, frankly, Kevin, have no idea what they're going to say about that, because that was a tap and that was a slide, but no position changed hands and nothing of value was particularly lost other than the Pirelli rubber on Valentin Barrier's car. But I'm not quite sure what they're going to say. I'm not quite sure what they're going to say about that. A little bit of a tap there as they make contact for a second time in a third lap. And Barrier stays out in front as these two are getting all elbows out here at the end of round number 3 of this GT Sprint Challenge.
Yeah, I think this second tap can easily be seen as a racing incident, but of course the stewards will have a look. Speaking of the stewards, I see there's been one more incident coming through. Well, I wanted to say hoping, but actually not hoping that more would come through, but it's an incident on lap 19, turn 5, involving the 721 and the 144, racing incident, minor contact. So only one more. Yeah,
that's it. That's the contact, though. That is the one at the scene corner, isn't it? Surely that is, because that would have been lap 19 at the time. I think they made their judgment call and said play on.
Yeah, and they've already come back for the one that just happened. So This one says turn 11 instead of turn 5 between the 721 and the 144 racing into the line of contact. So I'd say they tapped each other in the previous lap already in turn 5. So maybe they're still looking at turn 11.
Right, you are indeed, and they're letting it go. So we should see one more of those then. That shouldn't have. There should be another one here in a minute between the 721 and the 144 show up again in what I suspect to be turn 11, according to their turn chart. So we'll wait for that one. But I just like you, I expect that also to be a minor racing incident. These two are not pulling any punches between each other, are they? They're going for it here.
Yeah, like mostly they're keeping it very, very clean. Like just with that little tap that we saw in the previous lap, that's most of what's happening here, which is something you want to see. Like, okay, maybe a little tap, but nothing really happening. But yeah, like the slide, that was just a little bit too far in my opinion. But we've already also got Stewie saying that he might have been sliding already just before the tap. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there with the stewards. So I would not want to be in their shoes.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm in this box. The stewards box, of course, quite adjacent to ours up here in the commentary position, but thankful today that I'm here in this one, because that, it's a fine line between letting drivers drive and racers race and allowing people to get away with naughty things. And glad I don't have to define that line here today. It has been incredibly close. A little bit of fender rubbing action going on, and some nice Formula D style drifting as well at times. But both these drivers don't seem to be fazed by it. They have completely regrouped and continued their fight on. I will say, all the melee between the top two that has allowed Samir Foch to close in again. It was nearly 7 seconds the gap a little bit ago. He's closed in by more than a second and a half now on the front leaders, but still not troubling them as Foch is enjoying a nice P3 all by himself. Has been for the majority of them.
He'll enjoy this a little bit more than he has the previous races, but you'd still think he'd want to be in this fight here with Barrier and Tan, fighting for that race win, because that's what he's here for, not just for P3. But if this continues, he might be getting there in just a couple of laps time before the end of the race. But yeah, that all depends on if these two keep it this tight, having to slow down in the corners because of them fighting. It's actually Tan going to try go around again, with Barrier on the inside trying to defend the inside line. It's now coming towards the braking zone, and it looks like Tan has got the move done cleanly this time. But yeah, as we saw the previous time, if Tan can't get away this time, that power of the Honda will be very strong again once they reach the straight next time.
Well, we were expecting a third stewards report on contact between the top two cars. We have that now. Kevin Boss, what do they have to say?
Well, this is on lap 22, turn 11, the 144 and the 721 racing into the minor contact. So that was then previous lap. So yeah, the one that we've been talking about all the time was on lap 20 then, which was also seen as a minor contact racing incident. So they're letting them race.
Yep, they're letting them race. No position was gained or lost. Nothing in particular was gained or lost. No real damage done to any of the cars. Minor contact, yes, it was a slight spin, but Tan did not gain anything from that, and nor did either of these drivers lose anything to anybody else. When given the opportunity, the RCI stewards will let you race it out, even through contact, like you have seen today. That's exactly what's happened here. I think everyone in the chat's going to agree with that. I don't think anyone's going to say, no, you can't let them race through contact. And come on, cars have fenders for a reason. Just, of course, but little things like that, in my opinion, 99% of the time, you should always let that go, and they have done on this occasion, and I applaud the effort.
Yeah, it's nice to see, like, especially because no positions were gained or lost, then just let it go. A mistake happens every now and then. Of course, if something happened where a driver lost a position, then it's something else to look at. But it's nice that the stewards have decided to let it go on like this.
Yeah, it doesn't ruin the race. Nothing that's happened has ruined the race. They're still fighting it out. And let's talk about, as we enter the final 17 minutes, what's at stake here. A win today for Valentin Barrier puts him back into the championship conversation. A win for Dylan Tan has him in sole control of the championship at 3 races down So it's big. It's a huge swing. If Barrier wins it, no matter what Tan has done with the bonus points today, which looks like he's going to have the lot of them, it doesn't really matter. Barrier, Tan would still be your championship leader, don't get me wrong, but Barrier from 6th place in the championship standings would be a championship contender with a win today. And if he finishes second, he's still going to gain quite a bit, but it won't be quite as bombastic as it would be if it was a win. If Tan wins 2 in a row, obviously he is in sole control of this championship. He controls his own destiny. It means a lot to both of these drivers.
Yeah, but that said, there are also still 3 rounds to go after this one, so anything can happen there. But yeah, the way it looks at the moment, with Tan being in one now already, 1.2 seconds ahead of Barrier, looks like he's going to take control of the championship with his destiny in his own hands, not having to hope that another driver makes a mistake. He just knows that for the next couple of rounds, he needs to do his thing, grab the good points, and the championship will be.
I will say the gap is as big as it's ever been. Barrier falling back on Dylan Tan. It's nearly 1.5 seconds. You worry about the tires running this length. We don't suspect they've changed them at the pit stop. We have no reason to believe they have. So beyond that, you wonder about the tires of all the cars going 65 minutes. And we suspect they all can do that on a set of tires and be fine, but it's not going to be very fun. Also, based on how your car's set up and how you set that up often determines your tire wear as well. I wonder if Barrier has had a little bit more aggressive setup, and if that is true, it's music to Dylan Tan's ears, because that car's driving just fine.
Yeah, and if you look at endurance racing, where you usually have a 1 hour 5 minute stint timer, these tires can definitely take on the 65 minutes, so it's never enjoyable at the end of that stint. But yeah, we're now looking at the only battle, the only close battle we've got going on track now. It's between the number 4 Sherritt and the number 5 Rotnikov. Now only 4/10. So yeah, with this being the closest, I'm interested to see what Rotnikov can do, because he did seem to get closer a lot at the start before they went into sector 3, but now he seems to be falling away just a little bit.
Certainly is. Holds on to the final spot in the top 5. Sherritt, of course, driven by everybody. Cody Sherritt up into 4th place. He's 1.9 seconds off. If you are Samir Foch, you've enjoyed, as we said, a comfortable P today, but it might not be over, as Sherritt looks like they're coming for him. That was 2+ seconds the last time I timed it, and it's down under 2 seconds now. Cody Sherritt might be coming for P3.
And it also seems like Foch has dropped a little bit away from Valentin Barrier, because it was 5.5 before, now 5.8. Let's see what it is after they go through the timing line once again. 6.1, basically 6.2. So it also looks like Foch is falling away from Barrier, so it might be that Foch is slowing down just that little bit.
One thing I do worry about the Ferrari is the tire life late. Normally you protect the car just a little bit at the start to make sure the tires make it the full distance. This is a part of the race where you can get into trouble with those sorts of things, and I wonder if maybe Bosch's tires are not doing quite as well as some of the other competitors. We know the tires on the McLarens, the front-running McLarens anyway, seem to be well and truly intact, and just worry about some of the other manufacturers up there doing the very same. As Radikov, by the way, Igor Simmer.pro car has not given up this fight for P4. If Sherritt wants to catch Foch, he's going to have to deal with Radikov first.
Well, it does seem like that gap between Sherritt and Rotnikov is remaining a little bit the same. But yeah, he will be constantly looking in his rearview mirror to see where Igor is. Because, yeah, just one little mistake, especially it seems like when going onto the Mistral Straight, that's where Rotnikov comes closer with the draft and the power of the work.
Doesn't look like 2 seconds to my eye. Then we'll see when they get to the start-finish stripe. I don't know if my eyes aren't what they used to be, but it doesn't look quite like 2 seconds to me. It looks, yeah, it isn't 2 seconds. It's 1.6 seconds, the gap between Foch and Sherritt. Sherritt bringing Radikov with him, and that will further hurt the chances of Foch getting a top 3 here today, bringing the cars up with them. So Sherritt continues to move further to the front. Jordan Bailey, but we've been told has had a rough day and has retired the car as well. You can DNF and get points in RCI competition, but you must complete 85% of the leader's laps. And if it's multi-class, it's the leader in your class that counts, not the overall. This isn't multi-class, so that doesn't matter.
Well, looking at the times they're doing, I think there'd be like another 6 laps, I would think. And then seeing that he's already 4 laps behind, I think that might be a little bit too much to get points this race. But yeah, it's a shame when someone has to pull out, because there was an incident, then having to drive on your own. It's not the most fun in the world. But yeah, it is what it is.
Just gamers at the end of the day. Gordon Daly. So Igor Ognarodikov has a interesting proposition here. Do I try to pass Sherritt and lose time to Foch, or do I wait for Cody to catch Samir and then try to pass them both? I think that's what he's going to do. Ognorodikov's done that once already, mind you, today.
Well, he does seem to be getting close every time through the Mistral Straight, and then loses a bit of time again, going through Sector 3. So it all depends on how close can he stay and what he does if he's able to get closer. So until we see that, I don't really think we can say what he's actually doing, because as it stands, it keeps yo-yoing between like 4/10 and 8/10 what the gap is, depending on where they are on the start-finish straight or at the Mistral Straight.
Sad to report, the battle for the lead has all but evaporated. Dylan Tan has sole control. 2.7 seconds back to Barrier, and I think it's safe to say the Honda's tires are absolutely cooked.
Yeah, and that slide definitely did not help. They overheat, you lose grip, you have to take it slow for a little bit, but then you can't because you're fighting for the lead, so that would have only hurt the tires more. And yeah, now we can definitely see they're dropping off, and it is a shame because for 50 minutes we were seeing an awesome battle, and it's a shame that it's dropped off the way it has, because you really wanted to see these two duke it out until the final second on the last lap.
Really did. They fought for what do you reckon, 50 minutes thereabout, and it's come undone here inside the final 10 to 15 or so. Still some very interesting battles left to be settled here, including this man, the rear wing of Cody Sherritt, looking back at Igor Ognarodikov for the 4th place position. Sherritt not really catching Foch at a steady rate. Gained a little bit, but at its current pace, because I have been doing the math, won't catch him. He can pick it up, but to levels able to do a few laps ago. Needs several tenths a lap to get there, probably a little bit more now. Know if that's on, but I tell you what is on, the fight for 4th, and Igor's got to know that. Know when to make the pass at the right time, or when to attempt the pass at the right time. Certainly, for one of the more experienced ones today here, knows how to get it done.
Yeah, and he does seem to be a lot closer this lap than he was the previous couple. So maybe we can see him try and attack Sherritt at the end of the Mistral Straight. But it all depends on if he does this cleanly and doesn't lose any time compared to Cody Sherritt in Sector 1. As Sherritt is still trying to get closer and closer to Samir Foch, who also keeps dropping away from Valentin.
That Barrier looks secure in 2nd place for the time being as they continue to lose time to the leader, but Foch not safe, in my opinion, here, especially if this gap continues to go down. It was 1.7, it was 1.4, now it's 1.274 as it continues to go down. They're on the Mistral Straight again. Ferrari should pull away here just a little bit, but that was not a particularly stellar sectors 3 and 1 for Samir Foch that time.
No, and now also Sherritt might be already enjoying a little bit of the draft from the Ferrari.
It's true.
But here we see Ogorotnikov getting closer and closer towards that McLaren 38, but it does seem like it's just not enough to try and do the overtake. So I have to wait and see next lap if he's even that little bit closer than he is this lap, if he can do it, or he's already elected to stay behind Sherritt, as you said before, to try and catch Foch.
I think it's a brilliant idea for the Simware.pro driver if they have decided to stay behind Sherritt simply because Sherritt is catching. But the problem is that if you're Ognarodikov and you think that you can make that pass quicker, you've got to make that determination. But also, too, if you make the pass and lose Foch, then you've lost your opportunity for the double overtake because you weren't patient enough. Racing is a mental game. I assure you of that. Sev trying to hold on to the position from Neville, Eric Neville from the Shrugs team, trying to get it done. Maybe another Honda here struggling on tires late in the race. We documented the McLarens didn't seem to be struggling at all, and certainly looks to be the case here as Sev continuing to lead this group for P11, but for how long? Looking very racy as Eric Neville.
Yeah, he seems to be getting very close to that Honda. But yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see. I seem to be a broken record with the wait and see. But it is true, like he's very close now. And if he can keep this close to the Honda before they enter the Mistral Straight, he's going to have a very good opportunity to overtake them before the right hand.
Well, you keep saying patience and wait and see. There's a reason for that. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of restraint to keep from making ill-advised moves. You got to wait for the opportunity, the golden opportunity, and especially if you know the car that you're racing against is wounded or is running rough in comparison to you, that almost relaxes you ever so slightly. Be like, okay, I'm going to have, presumably, multiple opportunities to get that done. We saw, I believe that was Sasha Death on the back of O'Brien for 16th place. Sasha Death has had a really good race thus far. It's been in the mix 3 wide a couple of times and looking for 16th place late in this race as Neville look on Sev for 11th place. And this man, Ognarodikov, continuing to try and get by Sherritt, who's trying to get by Foch for the final podium spot.
Yeah, it is nice to see that we finally see a couple of more battles starting to begin all across the field, with now the battle for basically P3, for P11, and for P16 all over the field. So you see Eric Neville now very close behind Sev for P11. So it does mean that he didn't have the possibility to overtake on the Mistral Straight, as he's still behind him here through Sector 3. Now coming towards the final corner for the start-finish. But yeah, he is very close. So maybe he is doing that patient approach, try and get him on the last lap. But like I said before, there is a risk in there that if you're not close enough on that last lap and you can't do the overtake, you might regret not taking the opportunity earlier.
I was wondering what our one of our chatters in chat, Katrina, was dabbing at, and the dabbing emoji. And I was like, what is that for? And I realized there were pink cars on the course. That's Katrina's favorite. So I've been able to super sleuth that out myself for this evening. Several pink cars in this series, to the delight of many, no doubt, as Eric Neville continues to plot his course. And you know, we talk about the bad tires. Potentially, we don't know that for sure, of course, but we assume tires are going off of a Honda here in a 65-minute race. It seems very plausible to us. That won't affect their straight line too much, and especially if Neville continues to do things like that entering the Mistral Straight. But as bad as the tires are, that doesn't really affect your straight line ability as long as you get a good exit out of the final turn. It looks like he certainly got the better of Neville that time through.
Yeah, and then he's able to stay ahead before they enter the fast right-hander. But now we can definitely see that Sherritt has really caught up to Samir Foch. Only 6/10 between them. Looks like it's a bit closer at the moment. So it seems like Igor has done the correct thing of not trying to overtake, even if he had the possibility or not. But yeah, then them catching up to Foch, that could be a very interesting last couple of laps, because I think they're now like 2 or 3 laps to go, depending on where the leaders are. See, they've just gone through turn 2. So I think there's 2 more laps on the cards. Yeah, 2 more laps.
Sure is. They're going to have 2 laps to get it done. Now, the question is, will they have the map up? Will they know where the leaders are? And will they know how many laps are left? And the time is very fleeting here. You're going to get 2 laps to go. They already have done, and that is all you have. So if you're Cody Sherritt, you have to be thinking about making a swift pass, but you've got to assume that Ferrari is going to be quite stout on the straight still, even though it's ailing just a little bit. If you're Ognarodikov, what do? Do you continue to sit and wait? You've done the hard thing. You've been patient. You've waited. Now it's right there. It's tangible. It's real. It's less than a second. Can you get it done? We'll know in about a lap and a half.
Well, they might even already try and do it this lap before the final lap starts. Does seem like that McLaren is maybe just a little bit too far before they entered that right-hander. They've got a little bit longer to go, but yeah, it does seem like it's just that little bit too far. So we already saw they were very, very close before they entered the straight. So will he have enough in the locker in order to do the overtake on the straight, or will he need to do it somewhere else?
This is rather unfortunate for Hugo Merrill's. Merrill's dropping spots here, and several cars going by them. Solensev up inside the top 10. Hugo Merrill's dropped out of the top 10. They're down into 12th place. What on earth has happened to the John Alesi Esports Academy Ferrari as that car has free fall through the field? Keep in mind, Hugo Merrill's up inside the top 10 handily earlier on. It has just been a race to forget for Hugo Merrill's.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to him that he's now suddenly dropped so far, because it did seem
I
like he
couldn't
was
tell if
quite a
that
bit
car
in
looked
front.
damaged, Kevin, or if that's just a paint job on that car. I didn't get a close enough inspection, but something's off about it for sure.
Well, we now see that Sherrod is trying to go on the outside of turn 1. Just doesn't have enough to get the inside of turn 2 to overtake Samir Foch. Does mean that they're now all very close, as Igor is now trying to overtake him through the chicane. Decides to stick behind Sherrod as they now go through the last couple of corners before the Mistral Straight, and are really wondering how they're going to end up at the end of the fast right-hander.
Folks, this is the last lap of the race. A couple of ticks left in the hourglass, and the leaders down the Mistral Straight, and so is our fight for the podium. Samir Foch, the Ferrari enjoyer's Ferrari, in third place, looking back at Cody Sherrod. Behind him, Igor Ognarodikov in the AMG. It's a three-way fight for third. Who's going to make it stick? Who's going to make a move? Can anybody get close enough? It's been a decent enough Mistral Straight for Samir Foch, which should see him comfortable for at least another corner or so.
Yeah, so now go through the fast right-hander, and there are now not a lot of extra opportunities to try and overtake, but a mistake is easily made. So now see Sherrod get very close to the rear of Samir Foch. Igor seems to be a little bit more behind that. I should continue looking from the back of the car of Samir Foch, going through the last couple of corners now. As I can see on the map, the leaders are going through the last corner, but we're now keeping with Cody Sherrod, still trying to overtake Samir Foch. They enter the second to last corner. Does look like it's just a little bit too late, as Dylan Tan has now finished the race in P1. Congratulations.
Respectful race. Dylan Tan will go ahead and take a championship lead and control of the series, and it's going to be side by side down to the line for P3, and it's going to be Samir Foch who takes it home for that position. Berrier comes home in second, of course. Sherrod fourth. Igor Ognarodikov in fifth place. Savalainen sixth. Seville, Kubaki, Melis, Solensev, but is it going to be Solensev, as they're very close for P10 right now. They're very close here as Sasha Death of Death Racing has made the pass for 16th place on Pat O'Brien.
Yeah, that was a very nice overtake just there, as we see Soldatov very close to the barrier there, as we now look at the last couple of people going through, as Sasha Death has gone through the final corner with Pat O'Brien very close behind, but like Sasha Death has done enough to keep that position. P16, very well done. Now John Aracer in P18, coming towards the start-finish line. Then we just have to wait for Thomas Ehrentraut to be the last one to cross the line, who is still in the race. There he comes, and that was some race.
We had so many battles. It would have been disappointing had there not been a last lap pass, and in fact we do get one in the form of Sasha Death passing O'Brien, Peter O'Brien that is, for 16th place. What a crazy race. Very few penalties in today's race. Significant contact, I think we could all agree. Dylan Tan, a second maximum point stay in a row, 72 points to him, in full control of the championship. Valentin Berrier, a stout second place, just ran out of steam at the end. Samir Foch holds on, I think is the apt term, for P3. Sherrod and Ognarodikov, the rest of your top five. Savalainen, Seville, Kubaki, Melis, Solensev, your top 10. Neville, Merrill's, Soldatov, Dylan Climbs, Death, O'Brien, Eraser, Aaron Trout are your finishers. Gohan was down the pit lane in the 481 quite late in the race. I wonder if he needed a splash and dash to get to the end. Beyond that, a couple of drivers not finishing, don't believe they will get points. Dylan Tan, it was just about a perfect day for him, Kevin. He remained mostly patient, a little bit of contact there, but gets the job done. That's 2 wins back to back, maximum points day. He's got to be feeling good about his championship hopes.
Yeah, that was a very good race from him. Uh, getting pole, getting a fastest lap, and the win really helps him. Was a very good fight with Valentin Barrier. Like we said before, was after 50 minutes approximately that it finally fell apart there, that battle. But yeah, that was some fight. And also to have it be 700th between Samir Foch and Cody Sherratt for P3 is some end to the race.
It's always a good time. It's always a interesting time at Paul Ricard. It has some of the most fascinating racing that you'll see anywhere, one of the most unique circuits you'll find anywhere as well. It was a spirited race, so we didn't know for a vast majority of the time who was going to win or even who was going to be in the running. There were few spills and a lot of thrills around this very fast racetrack here in France. We, of course, thank you all for watching. We invite you to leave a like and a subscribe on the way out. We'll be back with you on Monday for our next broadcast of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Cup. And we'll be back with you. I believe Mr. Boss and myself will be with you next Friday for more GT Sprint Challenge. We've got other series running as well. And don't forget about the 6-hour challenge esports series. €8,000 minimum pot is our very first esports series. If you have a team and try and win a little bit of money, you can sign up to the 6-hour challenge esports series, racerci.com. Again, a ridiculous minimum of €8,000 pot. That is the least amount that is on offer in that pot. Wow. And if that's not your style, you like the community driven racing better, don't worry. We've got the 6-hour series that runs coincide with that series at the same time. iRacing is a new thing RCI is doing. The RCI goes iRacing. I don't know, that's hard for me to say. The RCI Goes iRacing series starting soon. The Okayama 3-hour race, GT4 and Mazda Cup car mixed class race. The Road Series Season 1 starting up with the same classes. And of course, if ovals are more your thing, the Pro Stock Series, the Charlotte 75 Pro Stock Series around the Charlotte Oval. That also starting up soon. Again, racerci.com for more information about that and other series. Thursday Champ is starting February 2nd. Night Owl starts February 10th as well. Many different series also ongoing. As a reminder, you can sign up for those mid-season. All you have to do is go to the website, sign up, and do your mid-week, mid-season qualifying to get put in the split. Final thoughts, Kevin Boss.
I don't know where to start. It's been absolutely insanely good racing for the majority of this. We've had some Robin's racing. We've had some good overtakes. We've had some 3 wides. It's been amazing all around, and I can't wait to see what happens next week at Spa.
That's right. We are at Spa-Francorchamps. We've traded one fast track for another. How will the cars go? How will the teams go? What will be the strategy? Can anybody take down Dylan Tan? We'll see in 1 week's time. And finally, a big thank you to our partners that make this race and every race possible. AK Informatica for providing our server solutions. Driver61 and driver61.com. You can get 25% off driver coaching at driver61.com by using our discount code in the description of this video. Driver coaching can make you a better sim racing driver, and it certainly is worth the investment. And of course, Fanatec, feel free whenever making purchases of Fanatec hardware. Use our affiliate link. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it tells them that we sent you. It helps us with things like server costs when you use it. Thank you guys that have used our link in the past. We appreciate that. But that just about wraps up today's action. What will we see in 1 week's time? Well, time will only tell. Until next time, I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Kevin Boss and Mr. Stewie behind the cameras today. Have a good night.